Hello and welcome back to another Photon Fusion bite. Is it going to bother you that I'm on this side of the screen now? So many times I've been watching my videos back and I noticed that my face covers up my scripts. So that's why I'm over here now. All right, so in this episode, in this bite, we're going to cover Photon Voice with Fusion and see how we can implement them together. But this bite would be incomplete if I didn't tell you about my Patreon page, patreon.com/PhilipHurlitz. Multiple tiers you can support the channel on, which motivates me to make more videos like this related to Unity or Fusion or multiplayer or Loot Locker or cloud-based storage or whatever you want. Join the Patreon. You can also become a YouTube member if you prefer that. Join our Discord, chat with me live, tell me what you'd like to see me review. Yeah, let's do this. So the first thing we need to do is we need to install Photon Fusion. But before we do that, not Photon Fusion, we already have Fusion. We've been working with Fusion for a while. Before we do that, let's look at the documentation on how to properly implement voice for Fusion. So on the Photon Engine website, we click Products, and we're going to click on Voice. And from here, we should be able to click Documentation, and it'll take us to the voice documentation. Look at the Getting Started. And it shows you can use it for Pun or you can use it for Fusion. And if we click right here on Photon Fusion, there's a Getting Started with Voice for Fusion. So we're going to click on the import instructions. It says import Fusion. We've already done that. Then we're going to import Photon Voice. And they still have voice getting updated on the Unity Asset Store, whereas Fusion doesn't get updated on the Unity Asset Store. You have to get it directly from Photon Engine. So we can just go to the Unity Asset Store and install Photon Voice. So I've already purchased it from the Asset Store. I mean, it's free. So here's Photon Voice 2. And we're going to go ahead and import this, but don't start going clicky-clicky because there's a couple of things that we don't want to import. So we want to uncheck these folders. Photon Chat, because if you want chat in your Fusion project, you're just going to use network strings and RPCs to do that. All right, so we're going to uncheck chat, Photon Unity Networking, Pun, and we don't want demos. So, Photon Chat, keep that one. What did it say about real time? Keep in real time? Yeah. Keep in real time. We don't want Photon Unity Networking. Of course, we want voice. But we don't want Photon Voice Code Pun. So there's the code. We don't want the Pun folder. And we don't want the Photon Voice demos, which I don't like importing the demos anyways. So I'm just going to uncheck demos and just double check. I'm not going to add the documentation, just extra stuff I don't need. All right, so I'm going to import this. All right, so now that we have that imported, what do we do now? I'm actually going to follow the documentation because I haven't used voice in a little while. Because it's one of the first things I implement in a project, and I don't have any new projects going on in voice too. So we're just going to now follow these steps. And if I remember right, this isn't really needed anymore. I found this was already that way by default. So we go to Fusion, Network Project Config. It automatically highlighted it for us. We want to go to Weaving Settings, Assemblies to Weave, and there it is, Photon Voice Fusion. I believe that's what we're looking for. Yes. So that was already there. So for our scene, we need to set a voice ID in the app settings. So let's go to Fusion, real-time settings. So there I have a Fusion ID, but I need a voice ID. So back over here, I'm just going to open a new link to go to my dashboard. Let's just see if there's a voice I can steal. What? If any voice apps? I'm sure I'm going to need to delete something, so I'm just going to delete one first. All right, then we're just going to go to Create New App. Choose whether it's a game or not a game, and then we need to set it for voice, and this is just Fusion Voice Bite. All right, now I'm going to filter by voice apps, and I still don't have any? Where is this hiding? Filter just doesn't work, I guess. Well, I found the ID, so there's that, and now I can come over here and put it in the app ID voice. So hopefully this pieces together, because I went down this large rabbit hole of trying to get Fusion to do what I want to do, or Fusion Voice to do it how I want to do it, kind of based on how I used to set it up back with Pun. And I've set Fusion Voice up on 2 or 3 different projects now, and I swear, at least on one of them, it let me do it the way I wanted to, but it just doesn't like it. So we're going to do it the way that it wants, basically the exact same way the documentation tells us to do it. So if we go to set this up, okay, so we have to add a Fusion voice client to the object with a network runner attached to it. All right, and so that's a sneak peek of a future project. So I want to add the Fusion voice client here. And if you notice it, it requires a network runner. Well, Philip, what's the big deal? Well, I like creating the network runner at runtime because when we want to shut things down, it makes it easier to keep track of and destroy and delete, because Fusion, you can't just leave a room like you could back in the day with Pun. You really have to kind of destroy everything and start from scratch. So we're going to do this. Let's double check and make sure our Fusion connection can handle a network runner already on the game object. All right. Connect to runner. If runner is null, so we're just going to, you know what we're going to do? Rather than check for it, since we know it has to be there because of Fusion voice, I'm going to not hide the runner in the inspector anymore, and we're just going to drag and drop it in. So we just take our network runner, drag it there, boom. Okay. You know what? While I'm here and while I'm thinking about it, when we create our spawner player object, let's do, I'm not gonna do that just yet. So the next thing that we have to do, and we'll just look at the documentation again, is we need to add an object with a recorder to the scene and assign it to the primary recorder. All right, so we're gonna create an empty recorder. I'm gonna go ahead and reset the transform, add component, recorder, and there it is. And make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, looks good. So this transmit enabled. This is like if you want to do push to talk, you're just going to set this to false when they're not talking and true when they are talking. And if you want it to be voice detection to where their mic's not on all the time, you can turn on voice detection and put a threshold of what you want them to be talking at. You have to kind of play around with that in Unity and see how sensitive you want it to be. And it might be different based on the microphone. I don't know. So we have a recorder. So if we go back to our Fusion manager, here's our Fusion voice client. Let's drag our recorder as the primary recorder. And yes, let's go ahead and use it. Otherwise, why the heck are we putting you here? Now let's create a speaker prefab. So we're going to create an empty. Let's go ahead and reset its transform. And I'm just going to call it speaker. And we're going to add a component, speaker. And as you can see, it added an audio source. And so what I like to do, even if it's not a VR project, is I like to make my audio source be completely 3D spatial blend. Unless I have like an announcer or like a host that I want to always be heard, then I might put it somewhere between 2D and 3D or completely 2D. And let's get a reference of what our player looks like. All right, and let's zoom in on the player. Is our player and our speaker in the same place? Great. So there you can see our speaker, and our speaker is this tiny little ball, but that's not it. It's also this giant ball. If you see these little dots here, that represents like the outer circumference. That's, if you're inside the small sphere, if players are inside the small sphere, they're going to hear the player at full volume, and it's going to diminish currently logarithmic with a logarithmic roll-off all the way out to that external point. But that's too much. So I actually Googled when I was previously recording, and it says that if someone's talking in normal volume, humans should be able to hear them from 20 meters away. So we're going to set our max distance to 20 meters. We're going to keep our min distance at 1, and I like to set it to linear just so that I can completely understand where the fall off is, and it just makes the most sense to me. And so now we can see that this is a much more realistic distance. It still covers our entire world, but if we're talking here, someone on the other side, they're going to hear a much quieter version of us. And what I like about linear versus logarithmic, which I think a lot of things use logarithmic, like playing Rec Room in VR, someone walks 3 feet away from you and boom, you can't even hear them anymore. So I like to keep it at linear. It's much more gradual volume change. Yeah, so there's our speaker. and it already has everything that we need, and it needs to be a prefab now. Here's some confusing things, like it's got this prefab setup. What prefab are we setting up? We have to assume they're talking about the last prefab they mentioned. So we're going to add a voice network object to the Fusion prefab object that has a network behavior on it. And what the heck is it even talking about there? Because this doesn't have a network behavior on it. Our player does, but our player isn't really in the scene. I just brought that here. So we're going to... I could look at another project of mine. I just had it open. I should have kept it open to verify this. But we're going to... I'm going to look, just so we're not wasting your time. Let me go look. All right. I just confirmed my other project. The voice network object goes on the player because it tells the speaker where it should go, what it should become a child of. This is... All right. So let's go to our player. Now, one thing I could do is I could make it this player, but I don't really want it to be the player. I want to create an empty, and I want this to be, what did it call this thing? It called it the voice network object. So I'm just going to call this the voice network object because I want it to be on the head. And if we really wanted to go overkill, what if I actually put it on the head bone, and so it would move with the head? So I could do voice network object, put it on the head, and zero it out. Now it's on the head. If the head moves around, that's where our audio source is going to be, in theory. All right. So, I got to add the voice network object component to it. All right. It found that there's a network object on the root, so it should be happy, just to cover our bases and to rebuild the Fusion table. I also need to make our speaker a prefab. So let's make the speaker a prefab. And then on our Fusion Manager, let's also delete this speaker from here so I don't accidentally add it. We need to add our speaker prefab to the Fusion voice client. And now let's hit play. All right, so if we go to our player and we click on this little thing to jump start us to the head, we expand the head, we should see our voice network object, and now it's got a child and it's our speaker. Huzzah! So if I go to Fusion Manager now, if I come down to our, what am I looking for? Fusion, we're looking for a recorder. There's the recorder. All right, transmit's enabled. Let's debug echo, mic check. Yeah! I don't know if you can hear that. Hold on a minute. All right, now you can hear it.
Now you can hear it.
Mic check.
Mic check.
It's not echoing anymore.
It's not echoing anymore.
Oh, wait, yes, I'm hearing myself.
Yes,
of course it's echoing now.
It's echoing now.
Okay, there we go. Turn off debug echo. All right, one thing we could do if we wanted to test voice detection, mic check.
Mic check.
We turn on voice detection.
Turn on voice detection.
And we can turn up the threshold. Until transmit becomes disabled in theory. Mic check. Mic check. Well, transmit didn't get disabled. But we can at least find our transmit threshold. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
0.02 I think I've liked previously. Hello.
Hello.
0.03 ain't bad too. 0.03 variants, Star Trek fans. But I'm not gonna do. Maybe I'll do voice detection. But yeah, so now we're transmitting. Let's do a push to talk. So this is gonna be relatively straightforward because the recorder is in the scene, and we don't have to worry about like Fusion or anything. So let's create a C# script, and we're gonna call this push to talk. All right, and drag it onto the recorder. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't already a push to talk example. Okay, there's not. I wouldn't have been surprised though. Let's open this up in Visual Studio. And I'm gonna be a little, I don't know if you'd call it lazy here, but I'm gonna do a private recorder, and we're gonna have to tell it what type of recorder it is. Oh, look, it knows. It knows. We can just double click that. Oh, I love you, Visual Studio 2012 or 2022. All right. So we have the recorder, private void awake. If recorder is null, oh, you're so smart, then recorder equals get component recorder. This is where it might get confused if it's the Unity recorder or... No, it's good. It's good this time. Cool. I'm not going to need these. I'm going to go ahead and delete those. All right. And what input systems am I using? We're using both. Typically, I would do everything using the new input system myself, but I'm feeling a little lazy, so we're going to try to do it without. Nope, not going to do it. I'm going to use the new input system. So using Unity engine.input system, I'm going to have a public input action. I could do an input action reference. It's usually what I do, but I'm tempted not to, but I'm going to go ahead and do an input action reference. Push to talk key. All right. And then on private void awake, we're also going to do ptt key dot action dot performed plus equal tab action performed, and let's just rename that F2 to oh no, if we want to actually hold down push to talk, we're going to need oh, this should probably still work. Action performed, we're going to say enable, whoa, delete, enable talking. What the heck is going on? Enable talk, what is it doing? Enable talking. Enter. Okay. And what about key.action.canceled? We're going to plus equal disable talking. And so let's copy this. And this is going to be disable talking. And then we're going to say for enable talking, recorder.transmit enabled equals true. And then let's just be super lazy, copy, paste, false. I'm not 100% sure this will work. I'm not convinced on the performed and the canceled actions, but I'm reasonably certain this is what we want to do. All right, so that's saved. Let's come back over here. I don't even think that I'm using any input action references yet. So if I come here, all we're using right now is what the starter assets has. So let's do, I'm going to go ahead and create an empty, and this is going to be our player input, because I like using the player input component, because using Playmaker, it's kind of required. Not really, but kind of. And so I'm going to create an action asset, and I'm going to create a new folder called input actions. This is going to be the only thing in this folder ever, probably, but there we go. And now I'm going to create a new action for push to talk, and it's going to be a button, and for keyboard and mouse, click listen, T. Boom. All right, yes, save that. And so now on my recorder, I can choose, now there's a whole bunch in here because the starter ones are in there. Ooh, but I could delete it. Oh, but it might be using it in my third-person controller, and I just don't even realize it. But there's my push to talk. And I think we're good. Let's test it. I broke everything because having this player input totally broke the logic for everything else. Because I don't think there's a player input in here anywhere. It might be on the event system. No? But I wonder if our player prefab has it. Our third-person controller is utilizing Yeah, there it is. There's player input. So we're going to use starter assets, and we'll just do the same thing here. Push to talk. Change the name. Listen, T. There it is. Keyboard and mouse. Save. That's actually not a good idea, having the player input on the player. And I'm surprised we haven't ran into an issue yet, because unless they patch something, Unity does not like more than one player input in there at the time. Although maybe that's what they can utilize for, like, if there's more than one local player for like multiple controllers. But I'm surprised we didn't have a conflict where we couldn't move our players because we had 2 player inputs in the scene. Because in the past, you had to, I would always keep my player input in the main scene. I didn't ever put it on a player. So, well, we haven't run into an issue yet. We'll fix it if we ever run into an issue. But here, recorder, we'll come back over here. There's push to talk. All right. I mean, you saw that we had an issue just now because, or maybe I didn't show it on the recording, but because I had 2 player input components, it wasn't happy. My only thought is because we spawn our own player first, whichever player input is in the scene first, the second one gets disabled. So any other players joining us or that their objects are created, it must just automatically disable them. All right, so that's working now. Okay, so our transmit's already enabled, which I should have started as disabled, but if I hold down T and then release it, now it's disabled. So really, I need to go back and on my recorder, if we're doing push to talk, we should just have that disabled. And then we would come back in, and we're back in. Let's turn on debug echo. La la la, can't hear me. Hold down T. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? All right, the next thing we're going to do is probably one of my most popular videos, and I did Photon voice for Pond 2, and that's how do we do a voice indicator. And so this is actually really straightforward. So for this to work, pretty sure we need to enable voice detection. And if you're using push to talk, your threshold probably doesn't matter that a whole bunch, but 0.03 for me is a pretty good number. You might go higher. Again, it might depend on the microphone. I don't know. But 0.03 has worked for me, turning on voice detection. And again, it's still not going to transmit unless I hold down T. Because I have push to talk enabled right now, which you could easily set up a bool on here that you can enable through some type of UI system. All right, so we're going to go to the push to talk script because it's already here on the recorder. So I'm just going to use it. You might want a separate script for this. But we're going to do private void update. And what we're going to do here is we're going to find out if the voice has been detected. So we're going to go to the recorder component, which we already have. So on the recorder, we can access the voice detector. And then on the voice detector, there's a bool called detected. So we can say if this bool is true, then debug.log voice detected. All right, so this is just a stopgap measure so that we can see that this works. All right, so we can see we're here in the scene. We're not talking because I don't have the T button held down. Now I'm talking, and you can see the voice detected debug is just going like crazy. I remove T, and it's no longer detecting me. But let's clear that out. I'm going to hold T and not say anything. In 3, 2. But when I start talking, it detects my voice. If I stop talking, the debugs stop. So you can see that that works. So what are we going to do with that? Well, we want to display something on our player. So let's go to our player. And let's just get, because I'm going to be lazy and I don't want to deal with canvases right now, let's do a 3D object quad. And let's look at the front of our player here. And let's just go ahead and move it to like, I don't know, there. And this is going to be our speaking indicator. And I'm also going to add the component look at camera that we made in a previous video. Where's its forward point though? Yeah, so we're gonna have to change that too. So on our quad, you know what? Maybe because I don't want to deal with the material. We're not gonna do a quad. We're gonna do a I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, we could do anything. You know, we could just do a capsule. No, not a capsule. That's not what I meant. We could just do a cylinder. I hate that too. Let's just do a canvas. UI canvas. We need to make it a world canvas, and it's width 1, and let's 0 its position. There it is. So as you can see, its forward direction is looking this way, but our camera is going to be looking behind the player. So we're going to go ahead and I don't know how I want to do this. With this one, I might want to create an empty parent. Then on here, on my canvas, let's go ahead and, I don't know why I did that. We're going to set the canvas's rotation 180. And then here on the game object, we'll look at the camera, because our canvas is going to be kind of like reversed. And let's move this up here. Let's make our canvas a bit smaller, because it doesn't need to be that big. And let's go ahead and move the speaking indicator parent really root. And on the canvas, we're going to have a UI image. Stretch it to the full size of this. And then there's got to be an image we can use. Speaker. Come on. We've been seeing the gizmos all over the place. Photon voice, icons. Yeah. So let's just take this and we're just going to change it to Sprite 2D and UI. And we're going to apply it. And I'm going to go to this image. And now I should be able to drag and drop that right there. And ooh, boy, is it ugly. Why? Why is it so dang ugly? Let's set it to point, no filter. Oh boy, is it just really low resolution? Oh, it's 16 by 16. That's why. My goodness. Well, it gets the job across. Is there a bigger? Oh wait, you know what? Set this back to default. What was it? Apply. What was it before? Just default. Yeah. Here there are bigger sizes here. So let's do voice 128. I'm sure that's what that means. All right, Sprite 2D and UI. Apply. Go back to the image. Go back to the image. Drop it in. Yes, much prettier. All right, so this will tell us that this will be our indicator. And we're just gonna go boink. And on the player stats, we created this a byte or two ago. We're going to have a public a public image, and we're going to use UniEngine.ui. I love that image speaking indicator. Okay, and then we're going to have a networked on changed. I'm just going to copy this whole thing because it's a lot. And I never remember it anyways. Networked on change, name of update speaking indicator. And this is going to be a network bool. And we're going to say is speaking is the bool. All right, and this is going to say you don't exist. I can't really generate it very well, so we're just going to copy that, paste it here, and this is going to be update speaking indicator. Okay, so let's say our bool, we're going to call it is speaking, just so we don't have to reference that long thing all the time. This equals change.behavior.isSpeaking. So if, not if true, if is speaking, then we also need our speaking indicator. So we're going to do image speaking indicator equals change.behavior.speaking indicator. So if is speaking, then our speaking indicator dot visible, enabled, I guess just enabled, because we're enabling the image component. Enabled is true. Else, we'll just say it's false. Okay. And so on push to talk, if recorder.voiceDetector.detected, then we are going to say player stats dot instance dot, what do we call it? Is speaking equals true. Else, copy, paste, false. So hopefully, let's see if we have to add any components. I imagine we do. Not components, but set some properties, values on the player stats. We should be dragging in the speaking indicator here. Great. All right, so now if we hit play, all right, here we are in the scene. We are not talking, and now I am talking with T, and you can see that it's blinking based on if I'm talking or not. A, B, C, and I'm holding T down the whole time. Pretty cool, huh? So I think that should be it for now. Let me know in the comments if there's something I've missed that you want to see for Fusion and voice. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That, of course, helps a lot. Also, don't forget to join me on Discord. Let me know what you want to hear next. Don't forget to join the Patreon if you want to join the exclusive Discord channel and get some extra other perks. And that's patreon.com/PhilipHurlitz. And all those important links are going to be down in the description. And we'll see you next time.